my partner in crime and my sister, Christy Brower. Hello, how are you?
Hello, doing well. Excited for this update as always.
Yeah, we have some Valo updates for you guys. We thought we'd
We
just
do.
jump into
And
that.
Daybell, Vallow
And
and
Vaybell. Yeah. Vaybell.
Daybell.
Vallow?
I don't
Like,
know.
I don't, they need a joint name, but none of those really work for me. I
Mm-mm.
something a little more like
Evil
Satan or
Psycho.
yeah.
Yeah, something like
We'll
that.
come up with one. Rest assured. There'll be a
Hmm.
t-shirt. Okay.
Right.
Anyway, so we are, of course, live streaming here on YouTube so that we can just have this conversation and update you guys on a few things with both of their cases. So that's what we're doing. Christy,
Yeah.
how are you?
I'm doing well. I spent had another foray at the dentist today. I just can't
Oh my
stop
goodness.
going.
Yeah.
I broke a temporary crown and had to go have another one made. That's fun. Other than that, I'm
Oh,
doing fine. I'm just really wanting to finally be done with all this dental stuff, but
yeah.
who knows when that's gonna actually be.
Yeah, not fun for sure.
I am enjoying the legal gymnastics going on around this case right now, though it's very interesting to
Yeah, it is.
watch, like, what's the real meaning behind all of this, and,
Mhm.
we can talk about that, but yeah,
Yeah.
I like, this part of it because there's so much jockeying happening, and who knows
Yeah.
what the real motives are behind it for everyone. Very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So there's three things that have happened that we thought we'd bring up. Quit
Oh,
that yawning
sorry,
right
I
this
can't
minute.
stop yawning.
And I will tell you, my neighbors are apparently re-roofing their house, and
Mm.
there has been a lot of chaos over there all day. So if you
Oh,
hear
wow.
pounding, banging, weird shit, that's either the pigs or it's the neighbors. So
Well, there you go.
it could be either.
It
I throw that out there like you all know what I'm talking about, but I do have too many pigs that live in my house along with my family and our
There are not
dogs.
that
So
many. I'm sorry, but
yeah,
I
they're
think that's
well,
hilarious.
they are classified as mini pigs, but they're not tiny. That's for
Mm-mm.
sure. And actually, they are at the top of my list today. Man, have they been naughty. It's been overcast and kind of
Mm.
gloomy, and all the banging and vehicles and all the chaos at the neighbor's house has had the piggies kinda off and the dogs and yeah. So I've just been basically fighting the animals basically all day.
Wow.
Yeah. My husband just came in from, the garage and he said, "Why are the pigs locked down in their bedroom?" And I said, "Because I don't care if they never come back in."
That kind of a day.
You know I'll change my mind in a few minutes,
You
but yeah,
will, you will.
we're on a break. But anyway, well, let's get to the deeds. So
Let's do
there
it.
was a hearing today. Well, let's back up. So a couple of weeks ago, the judge in this case, these are both of the Fremont County cases against Chad and against Lori. And these
Mhm.
are they both are being charged with 2 counts of concealment of evidence
And
and
destruction.
and obstruction. Yeah.
Destruction.
Destruction, sorry, of evidence. And so these are the cases we're talking about. They are the ones in Fremont County. And so the judge on that case, or both of those cases, is Judge Edens. Well, Judge Edens, a couple of weeks ago, released a brief that was basically his conduct of, courtroom conduct. And so that's what it was about. Well, one of the topics of courtroom conduct was allowing video cameras, allowing the press to video the proceedings.
Yeah.
And
And live
he
stream the
and live
proceedings.
stream the proceedings. Mhm. And he had allowed for one camera, one video camera, one stationary camera. Those were his rulings at the time. So, which was no big surprise because everything so far in this case has been live streamed
Yeah,
because of COVID.
right.
Because the courtrooms essentially are closed, but they can't be closed. And so, because of COVID. So, the prosecutor, Rob Wood, came back with an objection and said that he felt like basically his brief said that in the out of respect for not completely destroying the jury pool here in these little tiny counties, that we should close those proceedings because it's going to be hard to find a jury at this rate
Mhm. Yeah,
because
for
of
the
the
preliminary hearings.
because of the amount of press that these cases have had. So After he filed that, within a couple of days, both Mark Means, that's Lori's attorney, and Pryor, that is Chad's attorney, both filed their own objecting the objection, right? Saying that they felt like, no, it's a violation of their client's constitutional rights to, a fair trial, to have that, to close the courtroom would be a violation of their rights, essentially. So basically, that was the argument. And then, kind of at the 11th hour, there was one more person that filed. This was uh, Wright,
Mhm.
Stephen Wright. Stephen Wright, who basically was representing the press. He represents NBC and a few other news outlets, and they also filed an objection of sorts. It's called something a little different, but they filed basically their own. Hey, we don't think this is fair and okay, and nor do we think it's constitutional. And so he was there as well. So of course this
Yeah.
was a Skype meeting, as they have all been, and
Zoom.
or Zoom, sorry.
Yeah.
And so we had, of course, Judge Edens in one box, right? We had
Mhm.
Chad and his attorney who showed up as twinners in court today
They
or
sure did.
yesterday. They had the same red tie on, kind of a
They were
burgundy tie.
It was pretty funny.
Both white shirts. The attorney, though, did have a black suit jacket on. They literally sat there with the exact same look on their face for the entire thing.
They did, it was
They
weird. It
they
was
look
very
like
weird. It was a total Twitter
two
moment.
toads sitting there, don't they?
Mhm.
They both
Mhm.
have this kind of
Yeah.
look on their face, right? Is that about right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that was a good interpretation.
I don't know if I could do that again if I tried, but yeah. So we had them, of course. We had Stephen Wright in one box, and then we had a lone Mr. Wood in
Yeah.
the other. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Wood in one box,
Mhm.
alone Mr.
Mr.
Means.
Means.
Lori waived her right to come to court and sent her
Yeah.
attorney in her place. So we'll talk about it. What the hell does that mean? I've got some thoughts. We're all conjecturing right now, right? But
Mhm.
there's some thoughts, so we'll talk about it. So that's who showed up to the hearing. Essentially, Mr. Wood, the prosecutor, was given the opportunity to speak first since he's the one that filed the objection.
Yeah.
And essentially, he said, well, he did point out that I loved this. He pointed out that in one of the briefs from one of the defense attorneys, they had said that the state has already made multiple statements to the press. And so, why would it matter if this is televised? And he pointed out that no, the state's office has absolutely not done that. And
No, not a word.
additionally, no, and that they had basically kind of acted like, well, I mean, the police and the prosecuting attorney, they've already been all over the press, they've given interviews, yada, yada, and he came back and said, that's absolutely untrue. I have to call that out, in those briefs because it's untrue. I have never,
Mhm.
ever done that. No one in my office has done that. And the police departments have been extremely careful and appropriate in their contact with the press as well. And
Yeah,
so,
they've done a few press briefings, but they haven't been interviewed
but
specifically, individually, or anything like that.
well, and I'll tell you what, because I've been to a few of those briefings, they don't take any questions.
Mm-mm.
They come, they tell you what they're going to tell you. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so it was a real mischaracterization of what has happened, which is
Hmm.
just so typical of these defense attorneys, it cracks me up. Like,
Hmm.
come on, guys, at least do your research. It's not that
Right.
hard, to know
Well,
whether or not the
stop.
prosecutor has given an interview, and when
Yeah.
does the prosecutor give an interview? I'll tell you when, never. They don't
Never.
do that.
No.
Mm-mm.
No. And stop lying.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's just
it's poor form,
more
because
crap,
then, of course,
untrue stuff.
yeah, and of course then, the prosecutor, but, I was glad he took the opportunity to set the record straight on that, because
Mhm.
that should have been called out.
Well, and
Anyway,
he
so
said he'd made it
basically,
very clear to the police that they were to not be giving interviews and to not be
yeah.
releasing information unless that was a planned thing, which they have a few times,
Mhm.
but it's been very minimal.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So that's essentially what Woods said, I
Yeah.
mean, it was all pretty. There was nothing very exciting about the court itself yesterday, except for that Lori wasn't there,
Mhm. It was
but
interesting.
And then Pryor had an opportunity to speak, and all I can say about Pryor is, wow. What a lame attempt to kiss Judge Eden's ass.
Yes.
Holy cow. The court has spent an inordinate amount of time researching and creating this ruling only to have the prosecution challenge it, like clutching his pearls, man.
Yeah,
We
it
just
was.
can't believe, Judge, that you are doing such a good job, and this evil prosecutor over here had the nerve to file this complaint.
Yeah,
It was hilarious and
it was.
ridiculous.
Yeah, totally
What
ridiculous.
is it was his brief read the same. I mean, the brief was exactly like that, that
Mhm.
basically we are horrified that the court spent their wonderful, their very important time doing this just to have it challenged. How dare you? Really? Really, Prior? Okay.
Uh, wow. What did that have to
Mark
do with the
Mean,
purpose of being here at all? Flat
right?
nothing, as usual.
Not much. Mark Means, apparently, I think after his first go around with, well, not Eden's, his second go around in court, his first go around with, the Madison County judge,
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
which he made such a flaming ass out of himself. Uh, I think that he has heard, from a lot of people now to keep it brief,
Yeah,
because everything he says, he goes, Judge, Imma keep it brief," and
yeah,
then he actually
and
does,
then he
which is
actually does. He is
uh-huh,
learning somewhere.
and it must kill him, because he
Mhm.
wants to pontificate
Oh, you can
and
tell. It's in
puff
there, it's
up and
bubbling up, but he can't
oh,
quite do
yeah.
it. Yeah,
No, he can't do it. That makes me laugh really hard, to be honest, because, he wants to so bad, but he has kept it brief. He didn't say anything that wasn't in his brief, and essentially, basically, they were just saying, "We want it because the prosecution doesn't." Okay,
yeah.
that's not what they said. That's
But
what I'm
that's
inferring.
pretty much how it came across. I mean,
Mhm.
I there was nothing in what they said that was a true defense of why this would be good for my client. I didn't
No.
hear that from them at all, and it seems
One
strange to me.
thing one thing Pryor said that kinda caught me, he said, "The only other way to do this fairly is to open up the courtroom and allow my client's family to attend and
Mm,
be here to support him
mhm,
and for the public to attend," and I thought, "That's an interesting angle, so his
mhm,
client's family can attend." Hmm. And
yeah,
obviously, the Idaho Supreme Court has made some rulings, along the way here during COVID. And just recently, they've said absolutely no jury trials until September.
yeah,
So this isn't a jury trial yet, so it doesn't apply. But they are still really, I mean, Idaho's a hot spot right now for COVID. And so,
yeah,
there's still a lot of things being done
mhm.
to be careful. One point of interest is that Chad and his attorney were not masked and they were sitting shoulder to shoulder. In
Yeah, that
Madison
was really
County,
odd because in
mhm,
Madison, you have to be. So
it's
Fremont's not
Madison,
requiring it?
it must not be their policy.
Hmm,
Madison County's policy is you have to be masked, if you're in the presence of another. I mean, that's just if, an attorney comes to visit a client, yes, everyone if they're in the same room, which they're not right now, they're between glass, but, if they're together, like, for a hearing or whatnot, they do have to be masked,
yeah,
and we've not seen that yet when we've seen
no,
appearances with these 2. They're never
mm-mm,
masked. That I think is kind of interesting, a little disappointing, frankly, in Fremont County
yeah,
because, we don't want Chad getting COVID, yo. We want this guy to have all of his days in court and then
yeah,
all of his days in prison.
absolutely, absolutely. Hmm,
So, yeah, interesting. But anyway, then the judge, of course, so everyone had their moment to speak. Then he allowed Stephen Wright, the attorney representing the press, to also speak. Essentially, he said that it violates the Constitution to not have an open courtroom, and that was kind of the going argument.
right, and Woods basically said, "Okay, true, but there's nothing in the Constitution that says you have to live stream," which of
Uh-huh.
course there isn't because there was no
Mhm.
such thing at the time of the writing of the Constitution. But I
Woods
thought that
also
was
pointed it. Oh,
interesting.
go ahead.
I
Yeah.
just thought it was interesting. He said not even the Supreme Court is live streaming right now.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say, yep. Even the Supreme Court's not. So, Judge Edens was prepared to rule, he'd already read the briefs and basically, that's basically your argument unless you pull something else out of your hat, like, Mark Means might, but he didn't. So, you
Mhm.
know, well done, Means, I guess, or not. I don't know. But, so Judge Edens did, hold up his original ruling, and so, yes, there will be one camera and one video camera in the courtroom for both of these cases. So uh, they are the first week of, there's 2 days in August, or sorry, 2 days the first week in August, and then 2 days the second week in August. So I believe that Lori is second and Chad is first,
I think
or
so.
I
Yeah.
think that's right. I could have that
Mhm.
backwards, but anyway, we'll be here to talk about it.
Oh,
So
for sure.
essentially, that's what happened. So it wasn't super interesting, except for Lori not being there.
Mhm.
So, lots of conjecture right now. I had read a comment on one of these live streams from someone who said that Lori's just pissed off and mad at Chad and doesn't want to see his face right now because the 22nd has come and gone.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta wonder how that impacted them
Hmm.
when
For
it
sure.
turns out they're still in
Especially
jail
Lori.
and they are still facing serious charges. Yeah, I did find it interesting, and I don't know, I mean, it could be so many different things. She could be
Hmm.
ill. She
Hmm.
could literally not want to see Chad's face, that could
Uh-huh.
be the case.
I mean, it's an interesting thing because this would be her first opportunity to see Chad
Yeah.
in quite some time because she would have been on, the Skype or the Zoom call. And on those Zoom calls, you see everybody else, and so
Right,
she would
which
have had the opportunity to at least
it
see
does
her
make you wonder
husband.
if that's why, because not often are they both in court together at the same time because their cases are separate.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does make me wonder if that might be why.
My other thought, and this could be not correct, I'm just throwing it out there, but her attorney lives about 5 hours away.
Mhm.
And he appeared from what really looked like his office.
Yeah,
So he didn't come to town, which is, understandable. I wondered if it came down to money. Would he
maybe.
have to have been here for Lori to appear? I'm assuming yes, that he would have had to
Mhm.
been here in the same courtroom with her. He did indicate the last time they were in court that her funds are starting to dry up. And
Yeah,
so that made me wonder a little bit if he's simply they decided it would make better use of her funds to not pay him to come all the way up here for this 30-minute, you know,
right. Which
case, and maybe that's why.
totally valid because, I mean, this is really very procedural. It's not really about
Yeah.
their cases at all.
Mhm.
Makes
Well, and
sense to save the money.
that's an entire lost day for him as well,
Yeah,
that he could be preparing for their actual days in court.
yeah.
So I wondered if it was that. I suspect it's more that than it is that she's mad at Chad, but we can all dream. And
Mm,
then there's of course the other thought there, and that's that perhaps they are really just trying to keep her out of the public as much as possible at this point and kind of
mhm.
downplay her role. And then, one more theory we can just throw right out there is that perhaps she's getting ready to roll on Chad and doesn't want to look him right in the face.
Could be a lot
I
of
think it
reasons.
was, yeah,
Could be a lot of
I suspect
reasons.
it really was just procedural between her and her attorney and
Mhm.
what she's paying him to do.
Yeah.
And this was made more sense.
I think that makes lots of sense, that that's most likely, but I'm not gonna say that what she does makes sense because it doesn't. So, I
Right.
mean, as
Sure.
rational adults, yeah, that makes sense, but I'm not sure we're dealing with a rational adult here, so.
Yeah, I would say probably not. So essentially, that's what happened. Do you want to add anything to that before we keep moving?
Well, just only to say that, just sort of as an analysis of why did it go why did the
Yeah.
prosecutor bring this up and the defense attorney it seems like it would be the opposite, that it was would be the defense
Right.
attorney saying, "We need to protect our client's rights to a fair trial and to protect the jury pool," and that kind of thing, and it was the opposite, it was the prosecutor, and I
Hmm.
think that this is strategic on Wood's part in 2 ways. First of
Hmm.
all, by looking very much the part of the prosecutor, which is his job to protect people's rights. It is. And
Yeah.
so, yes, making that choice I think is awesome. I also think that he got a very public admitting from both attorneys that they were completely fine with all of the media coverage, which means they can never go back and say these guys didn't get a fair trial because of the media coverage. I mean, I think it
Right.
was both. I
Hmm.
think he's going to look as right across the board as as he has to be and
Uh-huh.
should be, but I also think that there's strategy here that he is very much using that hey, they can't
Uh-huh.
ever come back and say we didn't get a fair trial, there was too much stuff in the media, because their
Hmm.
attorneys fought to keep the media in the courtroom. So I there's a lot of strategy around it, I think.
Uh-huh. I absolutely agree. And Woods is an absolute professional. He always is.
Oh, man, he's
But
awesome. We're so
and
lucky
it
that this is who the
mhm,
prosecutor is for these cases, I think.
yeah, and he has a good poker face,
Oh,
but
he does.
I will say that if you watch the video, when Eden says basically that he's holding up his original ruling, there is a tiny flicker on his face that made me go,
Mhm.
"Woods just got exactly what he wanted."
Yeah.
If
Oh,
it
yeah.
if these attorneys are going, "Done and done, we won something." No,
Mhm.
bro,
No,
you
you
didn't, you
didn't.
got played. You
You
played
got
right
played.
into
Well, yeah,
Means
because
or Woods' hand, yeah.
yeah, you can't say that he wasn't, protecting their rights to a fair trial, and at the same
Right.
time, he's got ammunition if they ever try to come back and appeal and say, "Hey, this wasn't a fair trial because of the
Right.
media." So,
Yeah.
very smart move on
Mhm.
Wood's part, I think.
Mhm. I absolutely agree, and I've felt that way, along this that road as well, and just looking at that little teeny shift in his energy and his face, I went, "Yep, there it is.
Yep,
This is exactly what he wanted." So,
yep.
it's all good. I have a lot of faith in Wood. I do.
I do as well, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, with that being said, second piece of interest is something that came out today. This is a ruling on both cases. This came out from the court uh, about the conflict of interest. So, I guess we'll back up a little bit and explain what the conflict of interest was. So, once upon a time, uh, Mark Means had announced on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and in open court that he was also representing Mr. Daybell.
Yeah.
That happened back in May.
Mhm.
May, I
Well,
think.
at the, at the fated bail reduction hearing of for
Right.
Lori that,
Mhm.
was very much not successful.
That will be being used uh,
In
in
law
schools
school until
across
the end
the
of
in
time.
law schools across the land. Yeah, of what
Yes.
not to ever basically ever do.
Yep.
But anyway, I do think that at any rate well, sorry, I'm gonna get all sidetracked on it because it's so funny to me, but anyway, there's nothing funny about this case, it sucks, so sometimes there's something that comes up that cracks us up, so, Anyway, so that's what he had said that he was representing Chad, that he was representing Chad and Lori, and
Mhm.
everybody went, "How can you be representing both of them?" But Lori was
Mhm.
the only one at that point that had any charges.
Right.
So, okay, fine, you're representing both of them, Chad hasn't been charged with anything. Well, then fast forward to, the second week in June when lo and behold, both of the children's bodies are recovered on
Right.
Chad's property and Chad is arrested. He
Mhm.
shows up for his arraignment with who? Not Mr. Means. He
Yeah.
shows up with a new attorney, Mr. Pryor,
Yeah.
who has priors, but we could talk about that another time.
We sure could.
These guys know how to pick attorneys, you guys. They
Uh,
really do. That also should be in some kind of a class or a handbook, but anyway.
I'm thinking yes.
so so 'Cause everybody went, "My god, how can he is Means gonna show up in court with him? How can that be?" Well, he didn't, it was prior. Uh,
Mhm.
so then they were back in court with, Lori and Means,
Mhm.
and the judge said, "Now I just need to clarify and ask a question of Mr. Means. Mr. Means, have you at any time represented any of the other people in this case?"
Yeah,
Right?
co-defendants.
Any co-defendants or co-conspirators or
Yeah.
whatever. And Means says, "No." And again, you see the prosecutor, Rob Wood, with his classic,
Yeah.
you know,
Your
his
Honor.
his head came up. And he said, Your Honor, I believe that here in open court, here about a month ago, Mr. Means did say that he was representing Mr. Daybell. And Means kind of, well, he just kind of ho hummed around. He didn't really have an answer. Basically,
Mhm.
the judge said, we're going to visit this later. You guys, file something to me if you feel that you must,
Yeah.
we'll take care of it later. That's kind of what happened with it. So, some people really believe that Means might be removed from the entire case because he lied to the judge in
Yeah.
open court and he had represented both of them, which is an enormous conflict of interest because
Right.
it means that he could have confidential information about Chad and about Lori that one or the other could use against each other, right?
Right.
So it's a problem. All right. So that's kind of been ongoing. There hasn't been a lot of talk about it. And then today, this brief came down. So the brief says, and there's two, there's one for Lori, one for Chad. I'll only read one of them because, well, that's just boring. But
Yeah.
here's what it says. Sealed hearings were held regarding a potential attorney conflict of interest. The court listened carefully to the oral arguments and thoroughly reviewed documents submitted by the state and counsel for the defendant. After exhaustive analysis, the court finds that any conflict of interest has been adequately waived for the current proceedings. This case can proceed forward with current counsel. So essentially, the judge said, no, it's not that big of a deal. So,
Mhm.
but listen to that. After exhaustive analysis, the court finds that any conflict of interest has been adequately waived for the current proceedings. So
Right.
that could
And
change.
waived. I
Waived.
do believe that
Mhm,
indicates that both defendants said,
mhm.
"I waive my concerns about
Yeah,
conflict
I'm
of
okay with
interest."
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that I'm
yeah.
okay with this.
Mhm. Now
Another
I
very interesting move because, again,
yeah,
that could have potentially been a problem down the road,
right.
if they, were to come back and say, we didn't get fair trials because there was conflict of interest. Again, there's a
Uh-huh.
lot of dotting i's and crossing of t's going on here just to make sure that
Yeah.
there's no potential later on to come back on anything that's done, which I think is tremendously smart because there's a
Mhm.
lot in this case that could come back. And I
Yeah,
love that there's so much awareness of that and energy around it
yeah.
that we don't want to get convictions on these two idiots and then
Right.
lose them over something
Lose
stupid and
them.
procedural.
Yeah. No, especially not after all that has happened, all that has been done, my god, you
Yeah.
know? So,
Well,
yeah,
and
so that's
one
go ahead.
other thing that just I think it's really important to point out because one of the reasons that Woods brought this up now about the broadcasting of the preliminary hearings. Okay, so these
Mhm.
folks are both about to plead not guilty. We know
Yeah,
that. That's been put out into the world. They're going to plead not
yeah,
guilty, which means that at their preliminary hearing, the prosecution has to present evidence to show that they have adequate evidence to hold them over for trial on the charges against them. So that's
uh-huh,
why this is a big deal now, is
mhm,
because they're going to have to show some of their hand. Probably not all of it, but they've got to prove to the judge, "Hey, we've got enough here to prove that these people did these crimes.
yeah,
Therefore, we can hold them over on trial." And that's important to understand because at a preliminary hearing, if they choose to take a plea, this would be the time that it would happen
yeah,
is at the preliminary hearing. A plea would have already been negotiated between the prosecutor and the defendant's attorney, and then they would present it to the judge at the preliminary hearing. That's clearly not happening for either of them.
no,
They're pleading not guilty. They are going to
mhm,
trial, which I
mhm.
gotta say, what the hell?
Will they
I'm
though?
still, what is
You
their
know,
intent? Yeah, but at
it's
this
a
point,
stall.
yeah, it is a
Yeah,
stall. But at this point, that is kind of the idea is that the prosecution's gonna have to show their hand to some extent in these hearings
mhm,
to prove to the judge, yes, we do have enough to go to trial. And so
mhm,
that's why Woods is concerned about this now, is that some information is gonna come out in those live streams that has not come out before. I will
yep.
bet you a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of money that we're gonna learn some things we didn't know.
Some shocking things, some pretty painful to witness things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But things
yep,
that will give the judge enough information to go, okay, yes, obviously there's enough here to go to trial on these two
yeah,
cases. So that's one key I think around it, just as far as how the
mhm,
legal system works, that's important to know.
yeah. Well, and on that, pleading not guilty, I 2 things that come up for me. One is that they are stalling and trying to make the prosecutor show his hand and show what kind of evidence he's got
Right?
because they know that there's more charges coming.
Mhm. Oh,
And the
definitely.
evidence that he has in this case will also be applicable to the
Other
charges that are
cases.
coming.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so they wanna know, "What do you know?" And so this is
Right.
one way that they're gonna get some of that. The
It
other part
is.
of that, I think, is just kind of stalling out to see when are other charges coming? When are other charges coming? We really still expect that there'll be murder charges on Tammy. We still really expect that there will be murder charges or at least conspiracy charges, for Chad and for Lori. There's
On
more
the
coming.
children. Yeah,
Eh,
there's
yeah,
definitely more
yeah,
coming.
on the children. Yeah, of course. And so, there's more coming. And so, yeah, I think that in some ways this is a fishing expedition
Mhm.
to
Does
get a
because
better
it's
sense
not
of
like
what
you
the
can't make a
prosecutor
deal
has.
later on down the road. You can, but a
Mhm.
lot of cases end right at that preliminary hearing because there's a
Yeah.
deal made and that's the end of it, except for sentencing. And so, yeah, this tells us that they're not gonna do that.
Yeah.
Not yet.
No. Uh, One thing that I had earlier today that I forgot to share. I'm going to circle back to one thing really quickly. That's when thinking about the whole situation with uh, Chad being represented by Mr. Means, and
Mhm.
everybody now coming back and saying blah blah, you know, not necessarily right. You know, I wonder, and this is just me. I wonder if it's because Chad didn't tell him the truth about anything anyway.
Mhm.
And that, he was just blowing smoke up his ass like they have everyone else, and that maybe there really wasn't much to know because all Chad did was lie anyway. So
And
he's
that could
not
very well
worried.
be. And it could also be
Yeah.
that, Means represented Lori at that time was representing Lori for, the child abandonment charges and the misdemeanors. This
Yeah.
was way before the big criminal stuff came down, and so it's possible
Mhm.
that part of that is because he wasn't really involved with the big criminal stuff with them together,
Uh-huh.
I don't know. There's a lot of reasons for this, but when they said
Yeah.
waived, that to me indicated
Yeah.
waived by the defendants. Because
Mhm.
I would think that they are the first people to go to with, "Do you feel okay about this?" Because they have the
Yeah.
right to, adequate legal counsel. So I
Of
don't
course.
know. Very, very interesting
Mhm.
stuff,
Yeah.
that we're seeing here, but lots of
Yeah.
dotted i's and crossed t's happening to make sure that things
Yeah.
stick the way that they should.
Absolutely. A couple of comments from the live stream that I just wanted to address.
Yeah,
Bipolar Princess points out that Prior and Means do share office space, and that is true.
they do. Yes.
Their office is in, I believe, in Caldwell, Idaho,
Mhm.
and that's just outside of Boise. So, at any rate, that's the scoop. Yeah, they know each other. They share office space.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they seem to be pretty, they were well aligned today, I thought. Also, Alistair said, I've seen streamed hearings with the attorney and defendant not in the same room. So thank you for that because that is something
Mhm.
that I really wondered about. And so
Mhm.
maybe that is, who knows? I hopefully we'll get more information on that.
Yeah, I'm curious about that, and
Yeah,
and I don't know if we will, but
yeah,
interesting to not show up to your own hearings, especially when you're in jail. Where else have you
yeah,
gotta be?
yeah, yeah. Maybe she is mad at Chad. I don't know.
Who knows?
So last piece of I was gonna say piece of evidence. Look at me lawyering
Information.
it up here.
Information.
The last thing that happened today, and this was very late in the day, was just a couple of motions to appear that showed up that were kind of interesting. Not a big surprise, but these are two FBI agents out of Salt Lake City that have been in Rexburg helping work on this case. So, just about the end of January, this enormous trailer rig, FBI unit, was placed right behind the police department in their parking lot. And
Yeah.
it was there until just recently, and it's gone. Uh, it looks like they went home. But these were FBI agents from Salt Lake City that had been here helping out. And so two
Yeah.
of them have been subpoenaed to appear. And these are just some subpoenas we're starting to see. There's going to be a lot of them. The
Oh,
witness
yeah.
list for both of these cases is enormous. But
It
these
is.
came out today, so they're worth mentioning. And this is Special Agent Stephen Daniels and Special Agent Benjamin Dean. They were both involved in this case from basically from the beginning.
Yeah.
And so they've both been subpoenaed to appear. So we will be hearing when we see the preliminaries, which we will see them now, as we know,
Mhm.
there will be, officers from the FBI, there will be officers from the Rexburg PD, potentially Madison County Sheriff's Office, and the Fremont County Sheriff's Office.
Yeah.
And some of you guys have asked, and so I'll tell you, Fremont County doesn't have, they have the sheriff's office. They're a huge county. They don't have so much like, city and county. They have county.
Yeah.
And so that's Most of you are probably used to more, of a city municipality. These are very rural communities.
Yeah,
Anyway, so that's the scoop. Those are the things that are new as far as this
yeah.
case is concerned, besides the fact that the 22nd came and went and not a dang thing happened.
No, I watched all day, nothing happened.
Not a thing. Nobody even tried to hitch a ride on a comet that day,
No,
and they
nothing.
could have. Yep.
Yeah, there was a comet that day. I know, very
Yeah.
interesting. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in their, jail cells on that at the end of that day, realizing that nothing happened. I'm sure they've
Yeah.
justified it in some way.
I'm sure. I'm sure. So, yeah. Well, yeah, somebody had said, well, it's because they couldn't do their work. They couldn't get, the 144,000 gathered. So, you know, Christ couldn't come. He's chilling.
I guess, I don't know.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know what to say about that, but I'm very curious
Yep.
for these preliminary hearings. We are gonna learn a lot.
We will, and we'll probably do lives every day of those.
Yeah, for
We'll
sure.
wrap things up in the evening, because we're going to be glued to them as well as a lot of you. If you're wanting to watch those live, you're going to want to go to eastidahonews.com.
Yeah.
They will be the ones live streaming them. You can find them on their Facebook page. I would assume they'll live stream from, YouTube. Sometimes they've
Mhm.
live streamed from YouTube, sometimes they have from Facebook, but at any rate, I'm assuming it'll be from YouTube. That's kind of the format that they have,
Seems to be what they've been using
picked
lately,
up
so,
on.
yeah.
Yeah, but and so if you wanna watch them, that would be the place to do it. But yeah, we'll be here. And, we also just wrapped up the Dior Koontz case. If you guys were following that one with us, we did a three-part series on Dior Koontz. He was a toddler that disappeared from Leadore, Idaho, 5 years ago. 5 years
Mm,
ago, almost to in this month, in July. And we did 2, investigative parts to that. The first, we told the basic story. The second part of it, we actually went to Leadore. We had a
mhm.
very, entertaining road trip,
Mhm.
and
We
we had
did.
quite the adventures on our trip, and checked that area out. That's about 3 hours from our homes, and, brought you guys some video and our take on the area. And then the very last part of it, we just published yesterday morning, and that was the psychic analysis. Now, obviously, in this case, we're just reporting this case.
Yeah.
It's happening, live. It's not so much like what we, go back to the whole, you know, usually our format is that we tell you the story, we tell you what happened in a case, and we do the psychic analysis. Obviously, in this case, we have a totally different format. So I know that
Mhm.
confuses people sometimes, but it's because this case is happening right in front of us.
Yeah.
And so it's not the format we would normally cover it
Yeah.
in because, well, we're just covering it as it goes. So anyway, that's hopefully that helps, you know. Helps you figure it out, but helps you figure out our format. But
Yeah.
anyway, if you're interested in the Dior Kuntz series, we just wrapped it up. It's all here on YouTube.
Yeah.
And we'll be back, of course, on Monday, unless something crazy happens this week with this case, and then we'll
Who
probably
knows?
have it sooner.
If anything crazy
Otherwise,
happens, we will let you know, we promise.
yep, otherwise we'll have a new case and a new analysis coming out on Monday per normal. So,
Yeah.
anything else?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, you guys, thank you so much. Thanks for being here. Thanks for chatting here with us. We appreciate you guys and
Yeah.
take care. You've been listening to True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters. Have a great night.
Bye, everybody.